Labor Day weekend means many things to a variety of people. For me, when I was a child, Labor Day weekend meant, well, school was going to start and the summer was over. For those of us who are in the faith community, Labor Day weekend means a time to affirm what it originally meant, a time to say work is a gift of God, and the dignity and the economic justice for all people who work is an important part of the proclamation of the faith community. We're going to talk about that on Austin Faith Dialogue on this Labor Day weekend. Please stay with us.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life, a series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Welcome to Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Carl Gronberg, host for the program. I'd like you to meet a couple people who are going to talk with me about Labor Day weekend and about economic justice. Susan Wills is with the Austin Area Interreligious Ministries, and Susan, you've been on the program before, but thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
And Lou Sneed is a local pastor at Faith Presbyterian. Lou, this is an important issue that's very close to your heart. And when I was attending a racial reconciliation meeting, you stood up and said something that I said to myself, Carl, go get that man and talk to him because he needs to be on Austin Faith Dialogue. I really meant what I said at the top of the program. Labor Day weekend is a special time for me. I like the idea of summer ending and the fall beginning and all the programming that goes on in congregations and synagogues, but I think maybe it also means something more than just that. What is important as we look at the scripture and the theology, Lou, of the church and of the faith community about work and labor?
Carl, I think the issue for us who are working on these kinds of issues is pretty simple. The Bible gives us a sense of a mandate for what's going on with people who work and their dignity and their worth and their value. And we're concerned about particularly those people who seem to be being left out of the prosperity, even in this city, which we've enjoyed for the last decade now. And for us, I think the issue is pretty plain biblically. For those of us working with AAIM and with Austin Interfaith, I'm a part of that organization, we're concerned about those people who come to our churches needing help because they're working jobs that are either minimum wage or even at prevailing wages here in town, $8 or $9 an hour, which really are at levels by federal poverty guidelines. They need help. Mm-hmm. They can't make it by working those kinds of minimum wage jobs or low hourly wage jobs. So for us, the issue really is one about dignity for people who do work, who can make a living by their labor. And we see that as an issue for churches to be rallying around because it's clear in the biblical mandate that not only do we are called for charity, but we need to institutionalize our charity in the ways that we make sure that everybody has an opportunity to provide for themselves and their families' basic needs, shelter, food, clothing, transportation, those things.
You say that as a pastor of a local congregation, and you say that as one who has a conscience that has been touched by the fact that there are people who do not receive adequate wages and are unable to have dignity in their work and live well, even in a time when we have good life and good prosperity.
Right.
Susan, you head up Austin Area Interreligious Ministries, and from Lou's point of view as a parish pastor, how do you see it from where you sit and where you work?
Well, the message that I really want to bring people today is about what our congregations of faith are doing to help the poor in Austin. And what they're doing is considerable. We just came tonight, all of the employees from Austin Area Interreligious Ministries, feeding over 100 homeless people. What our congregations of faith are seeing, our synagogues, our mosques, our churches, is a 20 to 30% increase in emergency food, shelter, and clothing requests. This emergency increase is not from people who are unemployed. These are people who are working at jobs for $6 or $7 an hour and earning less than $11,000 a year working full-time.
Isn't that part of what the welfare reform was about in many of the states and throughout the country 5 or 6 years ago when we were talking about that, was getting people back to work? But has that work been the type of work that allow them to live in apartments where they can pay their way and have that dignity? What is it that the faith community, congregations, Lou, and groups like Interfaith, what is it they can be about? How can they actually make a difference?
Well, I think first of all we need to raise the issue. I've been gladdened and encouraged to see the City Council form an equity commission to start looking at these issues, this so-called digital divide in Austin, where a lot of people are enjoying prosperity, but there are a whole lot of people who are being left out. They come to our churches. We run a food pantry. We do a lot of resourcing. We're working with a coalition in South Austin to provide help by pooling our resources. We can't meet that need. There's not enough charity in the city to meet the kind of need that we're seeing. It's a structural issue. It's the issue about not having people on welfare for sure, but it is an issue about if they're going to work and try to provide for themselves and their families, then they should be able to earn enough from their work to be able to afford some of these basic necessities. And that's for us is the big issue. And so how can we impact the economic structures and systems in our community? One of the things we're working together with other congregations and labor folk here in the city, we're trying to call for an economic summit this fall in November. And today we want to announce on Labor Day Sunday at 12:30 at Central Presbyterian Church downtown, AAIM, Austin Interfaith, a lot of other union networks and other folks concerned about this issue. We're trying to say as a religious community, we need to come together and work together to see if we can find ways to help people who are working be able to earn enough. And we want to look at living wage options and initiatives that we may be able to encourage our community to consider. That's where we see the impact needing to occur.
What I hear you saying is the faith community has always been and is today in Austin, Texas, the conscience of the community, saying we want full participation for all the citizens of the city of Austin in the prosperity with which we've been blessed. And as a congregation, you all network, is that correct?
That's
with
correct.
Other congregations and other faith communities?
We have 13 congregations in South Austin where my church is located who've partnered together, and we've said we can share our resources because the type of needs, if you know anything about the housing cost in this city, people are really feeling the impact, especially hourly wage workers, and not be able to afford apartments that cost $600 and upwards. And $600 apartment is meager when you put the utilities. So just shelter issues for them, the housing alone makes it a real difficult for families. And if you have 2 minimum wage workers in a single family working, they can't hardly afford those basic kinds of necessities. So we're trying to come together as religious communities, first of all, to provide emergency assistance. And we're trying to work with the county and the city Health and Human Services offices to provide supplemental for what the public funds are there. But that's not enough. We've got to do more to raise the awareness in our community for the business community and the other social service providers, for employees who are working hourly wage at low wages, that they can earn enough from their labor when they're working full-time jobs to be able to afford basic necessities.
Susan, he sounds good to me. Good words to us. What do you think from where you are? Your agency serves the needs of the Jewish community, the Muslim community, the religious community, the Christian community. What do you think are the odds that Lou and his group are going to be able to get to the causes of this lack of economic justice?
We're hoping as a faith community that we can call on businesses, institutions, and government to make some changes. I think a very poignant example of a person who is suffering from being a working poor is the woman who was living in a hotel. She had 8 children. She left in the morning to paint a car. She came home at lunch to feed her children, went back, and she did a number of odd jobs. And during her absence, 3 of her children drowned. This is much more about our abandonment of poor children as a nation than it is about parental abandonment. sometimes with the economic boom that we're experiencing, we forget the day-to-day realities of what it means to live and be poor.
That's a very, very significant point you made about the children. Lou, what about the whole issue of justice? We've been talking about nuts and bolts, dollars and cents, pay, but what about this within the framework of justice?
Well, Carl, I think as you know, justice is kind of a biblical concept. It really is about equity and fairness, wholeness, shalom, and it's about particularly providing in a community context for those who are vulnerable and weak. Mm-hmm. And it's trying to structure the community in the biblical tradition. Back from the Torah, there was this a law that said that the people, the community of faith, should leave grain in the fields and olives on the trees and grapes on the vine, so those who don't have enough could have enough basic things to live on. And then they institutionalized that sense of charity, a handout. We don't want to do just charity. You know, it's the old adage about whether you keep giving people fish or you teach them to fish. Austin Interfaith is about trying to do job training. We've partnered with the city and the county, and we've done some really good, fine things to put people into living wage jobs that already exist, so we don't have to go outside of Austin and bring people in to fill those jobs. We can fill them right here in the city.
Lou, Susan?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that. I think that that is a noble effort, and that, of course, education is a way to get ahead. But we need to remember that we always need to employ people to clean our hospitals, wash our cars, take care of our children, stock our shelves. Education may help some, but we still need to provide for those people who labor in the fields and take care of their needs as well.
And what I think is important, at least what you've made me aware of, is that we need to embrace one another within the community. Susan, you said it well, we need one another, but we need people to be a part of the entire community experience. And I think that's part of the goal of the faith community and part of the diversity that belongs to us. And Lou, you are doing good work, and I hope that other congregants who are watching, not only your own, but other congregants, will go to their worship leaders and that they will invite them to be a part of some of this partnering that you mentioned, because with that, we can work towards that economic justice. We're going to continue talking about this in Austin Faith Dialogue because this is a very important issue for our community and for we who are people of faith. And we're going to talk about this entire issue of equity. So please, stay with us on Austin Faith Dialogue on this Labor Day weekend. Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue. We're talking about, on this Labor Day weekend, economic justice, and as people of faith, how we can involve everyone in our community in that which is the benefit of being a part of this time in which we live. And Lou Sneed was with us on the first part of the program, and he's been replaced by Lewis, another Lewis, but we won't call you Lou, it's Lewis. It's Mel Farrell. Welcome. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Carl. It's great to be here.
I want to talk a little bit about a guy who's a native of Philadelphia. Phillies fan, Eagles fan.
Pittsburgh Pirates.
Pittsburgh Pirates. This will not be shown in Philadelphia.
Thank
Lewis.
goodness.
All right, so we won't let that happen. They'll say, oh, our betrayed us.
That's right.
We're glad you're
My
in
brothers
Austin.
would be after me.
Yeah, they would. Tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're interested in this theme of economic justice that we're talking about on Labor Day weekend.
Well, Carl, as I mentioned to you, I work with school teachers and school employees here in Austin, but recently had the honor to serve on the Austin Equity Commission, which was a group of citizens appointed by the mayor and the city council to look at Austin's economic prosperity and weigh that against social equity. There is a concern on the part of many of our city leaders, including our outgoing mayor, that the economic prosperity that our community has enjoyed has not been shared equally by all citizens in Austin. And our charge was to look at economic growth and inequality and try to talk about ways that policymakers, the business community, and the broader community, including the faith communities, can address social inequality here in Austin.
And the Equity Commission discovered after they went into the study of this, what did you find?
Well, one of the things we found was that despite probably the most booming decade that Austin has ever seen economically, the number of people living in poverty actually increased in Austin from 1990 to the year 2000. Our population increased as well, but we actually have more people in poverty now than we did at the start of the last decade. So the problem has not gone away. The wealth gap has widened. Many people are doing much better now than they were 10 years ago in Austin. The median income has increased greatly, but the gap between those at the bottom and those at the top has widened. And I don't think any of us can avoid noticing the rising costs in housing, energy. As people become wealthier, they bid up the cost of things in the community, and those that are least able to afford housing and the basic essentials, because they work at very low wage jobs, are struggling even more now.
What's, well, Susan, how do you respond to that?
I think that it's important for all of us to work for the common good over what's good for ourselves, and to remember that when we have a wide gap between the rich and the poor, that it will impact upon Austin as a community in general, that there will be increased crime, that there will be increased tension, that there will be problems with racial reconciliation. So it behooves all of us, business, institution, government, and the faith community, to take care of the least powerful and the vulnerable among us.
And we're planting the seeds of divisiveness, because there are those who are going to see that they have been left out of the prosperity, and then everybody suffers. The Equity Commission, what is your sense after serving on that? That involved people from various sectors in the community.
It did. It was led by Ray Marshall, who was Jimmy Carter's Secretary of Labor and is now a professor at the University of Texas. And we had representatives from the business community, from the labor community, and several individuals that were citizens appointed by members of the city council. And we looked at a wide range of areas. We looked at economic development in terms of job training, and Austin Interfaith's Capital Idea was held up as a model for job training.
Can you tell a little bit about that, the Austin Interfaith Capital Idea?
Absolutely. Lou alluded to it earlier in the program. It's a partnership between Austin Interfaith and the city and the county and the community college. They identify workers, many of them the most difficult to employ because of language skills or lack of training. And they provide a wide array of services, education services, sometimes supplemental assistance with basic housing and transportation needs and childcare while these folks are getting trained. And they partner with businesses that agree up front to employ people who gain a skill set.
You know, one of the things that strikes me, Susan, is that it's not just the responsibility of the faith community, even though I think in the charter and the mandate of the faith community, the concern for the poor. But it sounds to me from Lewis, what you're saying is that here you have city, county, educational institutions, all of them recognizing the need to reach out to those who belong to the community to share in the benefits of being a part of the community. I really like that idea of the interaction and the partnering and networking that Lou was talking about earlier at the top of the program, and what you're saying. The people who served on that Equity Commission, were they people of hope? Were they people, after you did this, were they people saying, we can't do anything? What was the feel? What was the sense?
I think that there was a sense of optimism and a sense that people given opportunity will do great things. And there was certainly a sense of the need to partnership. And I'm glad that you touched on that, because there are good folk of goodwill in our community right now that are working on these issues in a variety of different capacities. And I think one of the positive things that the Equity Commission will bring to our community is a call to have further integration, to all commit to working on social equity. As Susan said, it is something that needs to concern us all. And having Ray Marshall chair it was powerful, because he makes the economic argument that it is in everyone's best interest to try to eradicate the inequality. Not that we're going to have absolute equality across the board. That's not the goal here. The goal is not to say that everyone should earn the same amount of money for the work they do, but that all who work should earn enough to subsist at a level of basic dignity, and not have to rely on assistance and charity.
Susan?
Sometimes we forget that all economic decisions have human consequences. And when we lose sight of that, we hurt ourselves, our community, and the future of our children.
And I think that's the point that you told, the story about the woman who had to leave her children and the tragedy that befell those children with mother being gone. And once again, that's not just an issue for that woman or for her family, but that's for the entire community, the society, because children then are put in a place where it's not good and healthy for them. Where do we go with this? What do you think the Equity Commission and the faith community? See, what I, as a parish pastor, what I sense is that those who want to separate the various institutions really are not, they're standing in the way of what I would call justice, that God calls all of us, no matter where we are, to be a part of solving the issues that we face. Austin Area Interreligious Ministries, what's the position they have towards all of this? How do you support, or do you interface at all with the Equity Commission?
It is the holy mission of all of the faith groups involved in Austin Area Interreligious Ministries to take care of the poor, and we will never turn our backs on that effort. But we know that we need the Equity Commission. We need to partner with them in order to make a difference, so that people who are poor can live with dignity and not on charity.
I like the holy mission of the faith communities to be concerned about the poor. Where you're coming from, Louis, you work in secular employment, you work with teachers and educators. That also is a holy mission. And one of the concerns I've always had is that educators frequently do not receive a living wage either. What do you do? What do you say to them when you go back and talk about living wages for them as well as others in our community?
Well, we have actually struggled to attain a living wage, especially for the people that clean the schools and prepare the food for school children and drive the school buses. And one of the recommendations that the Equity Commission is bringing forward is a call on public institutions to take a lead by being good models for the rest of the community and not employing people at subsistence level wages. And even going beyond that and asking those that do business with them, whether it's the school district, the city, the county, that those employers also who take their receipts from tax dollars, that they also adhere to the payment of a living wage. And that's a very powerful message that the Equity Commission has sent. And there are many communities around the country that have adopted these kinds of living wages. And I think this will be something that all of us in Austin will want to discuss. And Lou made mention of an economic summit that's calling together.
And he was talking about that in November, is that right?
That's right, November.
But on Labor Day, Sunday, there will be a press conference. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
And that's what he was saying?
That's right. This afternoon at 12:30 at a Central Presbyterian Church, members of the faith community, the religious community, and labor community will be standing up and announcing plans for this economic summit and calling on the city to address the issue of the living wage.
And when you call upon the city, you're not calling only upon those who are the elected officials of the city.
I should have said calling upon the citizen.
Yeah, there, now I think that's right, because
Absolutely.
Labor Day weekend is a time when we all are to celebrate the gift of work and the importance of work. I'm one of those guys who's very privileged. I love what I do, and I also enjoy the fact that I can invite on Labor Day weekend the faith community where I live out my faith to affirm the place we all have in terms of our work experience. And I had a person say to me recently that they had never really thought about the work that women do in the home, and yet to be able to say what a special type of work that is. And on Labor Day weekend, I think it would be well for all those children and fathers in the homes to be able to say to one another, we appreciate the work is going on, and particularly with the two-income family type situation we have.
They can appreciate it and they can participate.
I think that's right, and participate in the work and say this is holy work and a holy mission that we're doing together.
Right.
Where does the Equity Commission go now?
We met with the City Council on Thursday and shared our recommendations with them. I think now our job is to continue to encourage both the City Council and the broader community to address the issues of housing, child care, health care, workforce development, education, and transportation, which were the main areas that the Equity Commission considered and made recommendations in. I know I'm going to be working to get the city to adopt a living wage, and I'm looking forward to working with Lou Sneed and Austin Interfaith and AAIM on that as well.
That's a very encouraging word, Louis, and we know that you'll be there. And I think also it means that there's a lot of work to be done, Susan. And AAIM will be a part of that work and that effort to make certain that the community knows what Equity Commission has done, that there will be benefits reaped for not only the poor, but for all of those within this community. We want to thank you for being a part of this program and sharing with us on Austin Faith Dialogue, and we hope you'll come back. Susan, any last words you want to say on this issue?
I'm feeling very optimistic. I'm very proud of the Austin community, and we have divine guidance in this. So I think that we have wonderful things to look forward to.
I do like you. I think that's great. Nice spirit. There is the presence of God within all of this work. And Louis, we ask God's blessing to be upon you as you do this work. And one of the things I want to say to you is don't lose heart. Stay in there and share with us.
Thank you.
And to all of you who are on this Labor Day weekend enjoying the time that we have together, I remind you that this is a time to enjoy the holiday. But this is also a time to think about justice, economic justice, and the dignity of all the citizens of our community. And for we who are people of faith, this is an invitation to us to share life together in community. Blessings and peace be to you. Thank you for being with us and sharing on Austin Faith Dialogue. Have a great Labor Day weekend.